Have you ever wondered what games you should keep or you should lose? Find out here at Purge Reviews.
Ruins of Mars is a game I went to my friendly local gaming store and I saw it's on the shelf, and the Mars theme kind of was like, man, that's interesting. I never heard of it. What's going on here? And I looked at it, kind of looked like a Euro game. I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this one a try. It looks like you're building up Mars, but in a different way than terraforming Mars. Very different game in this respect. So I opened up, didn't expect a lot, and I read the little story in the rule book, which I don't normally do, to be honest, and it really pulled me into what I was doing, and I'm really glad that I read that. If you're going to play this game and you want to be thematic at all, definitely read that and kind of figure out what's going on. Now, the game is very interesting. I like the part where you're putting the rover up and you're activating the tiles, and then, you know, if you have the wrenches, you get the extra bonus, and then, you know, your player power, your variable player power may trigger off that, and then at the end of the turn, you're able to take those tiles, and you have to shuffle them up face down and put them back out, so the board will look a little bit different for the next person. And that's really, really fun, and those tiles are very chunky. It reminds me of the Echoes, which is another game that uses the same type of tiles. Very, very cool, and I like the look of it quite a bit. Then you have the tech cards that you're kind of building up. You can only build 2 and 3, want certain aspects of learning the language, which is really just trackers that you're going up. And you're getting these resources, you're spending them for these cards, but you gotta know the language in order to operate them. And it all comes together in a congruent kind of package I didn't expect at first. You know, you need the resources, but you need to move the language track, and all these kind of play into the tech, which will trigger the end of the game and hopefully score you enough victory points to win. Very, very interesting game. And when you pick things, you don't want too many tiles at one location. It's going to be very attractive for the next person. Very attractive. So you want to kind of take that into consideration, but also boosting up what you want the most. Now, it's not a game that you can really plan out on your turns. If I take my turn, or say we're playing a 4-player game, second player, will mix the tiles up. Third player will mix the tiles up. It's almost on that, third person away from you. Then you can kind of start planning some things out, but you won't know exactly what's going to happen until your turn. So I think it plays better with less people because it's just less of a fight for those resources, and you kind of plan out, and AP is mitigated a little bit in this, but there's not a lot of AP in this game. If you are, you're just constantly overthinking it. The tech cards will give you either points at the end of the game, ongoing powers is kind of immediate benefit, and then there's a scoring mechanism because they have letters on them, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense thematically, but anyway, so there's a lot of considerations to which cards you want, because you're only going to have 9 total if you're the one that triggers into the game, and likely, if you're not that person, you'll have a little bit less. So it's very important on what their powers are, how much they cost, what resources you're giving up, when they're available, because if they're a brand new card, they cost more oxygen. As they get older, the oxygen level goes down a little bit. So it all fits together in a really neat puzzle. It's I would call medium or a medium light weight kind of game. Very easy to teach. And everything kind of fits together in a nice glove, so it makes it a little bit easier to teach once you know the game, and a little bit easier for people to digest. I wouldn't call this a gateway game or something I would play with a non-gamer necessarily, but I do think it is something I could easily figure out with just a little bit of substance to their gaming background. The components are really good. The price of this game was amazing. I think it's $29 or $35 or something like that. Amazing price on this game for what you get in the package. With all these games coming out costing so much, this was a budget-friendly title that I found played excellently. Is it the best game I've ever played? Probably not, but this is a really fun family way. If you like the Mars theme, this package is going to come together to you, and one I can easily recommend. And I really like that tile aspect, that part where the tiles will trigger, and then you mix them up and you move them on. It's really cool things. It really feels like you're digging down into what do I have here? Now, as the player of the game, you have access to that, which is a little different in a game called Thieves, where you're an archaeologist and you would draw into a bag, and, oh, I didn't know what I was going to get, maybe you got nothing. Well, this kind of mitigates all that, because you're not going to get nothing. You know exactly what you're going to get, but it's going to change each time somebody takes a player turn, as if you're digging down. I really like that quite a bit, and I find it a step forward from what Thieves had, even though I really like Thieves as a game. So, Ruins of Mars impressed me. I wasn't expecting a lot, but it definitely exceeded expectations, and it's one you may not have heard of that I would tell you to definitely check out. Keeper for me. Here's Ruins of Mars. You can see a nice Mars where you're going to be like digging in and getting resources. Very striking box, which you'll see on the rule book here. We'll take a look at that in a few minutes. You're going to have a nice cardboard mat. It has a scoring on the back, so at the end you do all of your scoring. These will be this is really just a place to put your cards. It's kind of flimsy. It's okay. There's has no artwork on it. Now these will be the player boards you have. You can see you popped out so your cubes don't move or anything, and everything you need to know about the game is at the top. So these are really, really nice. This will be a little tracker. You'll be going up to score points. Very nice. Double-sided here. Great. And this will just be a tracker to tell you, I don't know why this game didn't come with a board. It seems a little odd. You're going to have some chits that will be here, hourglasses. These could have been upgraded. It could have been very nice. Little small cars. The artwork on it is nice. The resource you need are kind of small. And then the letters and the powers they do are fine. These pieces are really good. If you ever played Ecos, these are like straight out of that. Very chunky, very nice. Icons are easy. And everybody's going to have any number of these little cubey things they're going to have. Now this is where the game kind of shines just for a moment in the artwork department. I think these artwork on these are phenomenal. This is the only place you'll see does not have some of the expansion stuff through the Kickstarter in here, and that's fine. Then you have your solo rules that you will have here also. So, I mean, overall, I think the components are fine. Some of them are a little bit more generic that maybe that I like these little cubey things, they're fine. These kind of stood out. The boards are great. Overall, not a bad little thing. I mean, you get a 6-sided die, you get a little rover that's silk screen. Not too shabby. Not great. It almost feels like a Kickstarter that maybe didn't fund as much as they wanted, but what you get is okay. Here's a robot from Ruins of Mars. You can see it definitely has the artwork from the front of the box. A really nice story here, actually. This really brought me in, and reading this, which is not something I usually do, to be honest, I really like that. Picture of all the components, which is a must, especially in this game. And I had a couple component things I really wasn't sure what they were. Setup, you got the pictures here, and the words here and the pictures here. I wish, really, they would have been like 5, and they had the number 5 over here, where I could see where things were going. That was a little tricky at first. Then an overview of what you're doing and the gameplay. Everything you do is right here, and then it breaks it down further. The game is fairly simple to learn, but you will need to kind of decipher all this. And some of the things are really weird. So like when you take an action here, it's either going to be a discover action or a decipher. And it's a little confusing because your player A says take one action. You're going to be activating a lot of these tiles. That was a little confusing at first just from the verbiage not being that consistent. Playing your tech cards down, and then how you allocate things. Very easy to do. And then the last part of this will just be the solo rules, and you have the character's abilities kind of laid out. The only one that wasn't in here was the Super Mutant. I don't know why. It wasn't included in the book at all. Then solo rules at the back, and then a little appreciation, and then all the cards. It's kind of nice to know, especially when you haven't played the game before, and you can kind of look and see what's available, so you know, do I want to pick that up, or do I want to get something else? But rulebook was fairly good. Some inconsistencies brought on by the player aid, I felt like. That could have been cleaned up just a tad, but not too shabby. I'm going to try to explain this game the best that I can. It's a little confusing at first, but I think when you kind of get into it, you see how all the pieces connect, it won't be that difficult. The first thing you do is on your turn, you're going to take the rover. And you can take any of these 5 actions. It doesn't really matter. You're going to put the rover there. If I took this action, the next player will pick this up, and he could also take that action. So there's really no benefit or whatever hindrance. You can take any of the 5 actions that you want, and there's no order or cost to take it. You just pick one and you take it. So let me go over the 3 actions. First of all, if you have anything that has, first thing you do when you take an action, you can transfer. So when you're going to have your player aid, you're going to have these cubes that will go in here, and when you get something, it goes to the right, and when you spin it, it goes to the left. See the numbers at the top. Very simple. So I can spend either 2 of the oxygen, which is the blue down here at the bottom, and that one's going to be super, super important. Or I can spend 2 of my hourglasses, which I'll be able to get. It's just a resource you'll be able to get. And I can move something adjacent. So let's say I went to the workshop. I could spend the 2 oxygen or the 2 hourglasses, not one of each, to move one of the tiles over. It just has to be adjacent. I can pick one. Now, if this was, let's say it was set up like this, and this one was by itself, there always has to be one there. So I couldn't pull that one, but I could pull, let's say the turn started like this. I took this action. I couldn't use this one, but I could bring that one over. So that's something that I could do by spending that. The next thing I'm going to do is I take any radiation. So let's say I took this action. This has 3 radiation on it. And this tile is the only tile, I believe, that also has radiation on it. So in that case, I would take 4. Radiation is important because at the end of the game, whoever has the most is going to lose 2 victory points per radiation token that they have. And that's going to be a negative. And if you don't have the most, then you're only going to lose 1 point per radiation token you have. So you really want to keep track of the radiation tokens that you're getting. So depending on what spot you go to, you may take radiation and probably will. Then, if you're in a location and you have a wrench, you will take the wrench action. So let me show you here. If I went to the workshop, I have 1 wrench. So I would take the wrench action here. If I had gone to the infirmary, there aren't any wrenches, so I would not take the wrench action. Now let's say the board had been set up like this, and I have 2 wrenches here. That means I could take the wrench action twice. So The wrench action here gives you a free resource on your handy dandy chart here, one of these four, not an hourglass. This will let you go up on the language track. So the language track is something you'll be pushing your tiles up. These will be very important because these are worth victory points at the end. If you ever get to the end of it and you master it, then nobody can go above you and you're going to score the max amount of points up here at the top. So be aware of that. In addition, as you're moving up, you're going to have to get, see, they say A's and B's and stuff like that. You're going to need that for when you're building your tech tree. So as you're getting cards, I'll show you how you get cards in a minute. Anybody can get level 1 cards. You don't have to have anything to get that. But if you want to get a level 2 card, you need 2 of these tracks to be up on the A or above. And if I wanted to get level 3 ones, I need 2 A's and 1 B. So I need at least 2 of these to hit or above the A's and at least 1 to be up here where the B's are at. So as you push these up, not only you get victory points, they're going to allow you to get better technologies. That's kind of how that's going to work. This one right here will give you extra hourglasses, and this one will let you lose radiation. So you can give your radiation tokens up, remember, because they're a negative at the end of the game. So I can take my radiation, get rid of them, put them back in the supply. Now, the Wasteland's the only one that doesn't have a wrench ability. You're always going to be able to do this. If you go there, you're simply going to roll the dice, whether you have wrench there or not, and gain a number of hourglasses depending on what you roll on this chart. So you would do your wrenches next. The next thing you can do is you can take an action. This is a little bit confusing. So this spot and this spot allows you to move up on the language track. So if you take laboratory or dormitory, you will move up on this track depending on what icons are here. So if I went to the laboratory, then I can move up once on the red and 2 on the green. So I'd move up on the red track and 2 on the green. If I had gone to the dormitory, I would move up 2 on the orange, 1 on the blue, 1 on the red. So you always want to look at what icons are there. So you can push yourself up on these locations. Now the other 3, which is the wasteland, the workshop, and the infirmary, they allow you to gain additional ones of these. So I'll move up to the right and gain more of the gas or gain more of the oxygen. So if I'd gone to the wasteland, I would get 1 red and 2 blue. And this one is wild, so I can move up on any track that I want to gain more resources. If I had gone here, I would get 1 blue and 1 green. And if I had gone here, I get 2 orange, a green, and a red. That can be very, very helpful to get those resources. Now, what are we going to spend the resources on? Let me move this out of the way, and I'll show you. So this is the tech cards that will be out, and you'll be placing the tech cards that you purchase on here. So the maximum you can have is 3 level 1, 3 level 2, and 3 level 3 for a total of 9 cards. And when you get 9 cards, that will end the game. The other way to end the game is if somebody is to pump 4 of these languages all the way to top. Not one person, but all the people playing. Or one person gets 9. And the way you're going to get these, you're going to pay. So anything on this row is going to cost you no oxygen. This row, 1, 2, 3, or 4. If you pay 4, you can go through the whole deck and just find whatever card that you want. You also have to pay the cost. So each card is going to have a cost associated with it. As you can see here, 2 orange, 1 red, and 1 green. And I would give that up for my resources from this. So I'd move it to the left to indicate that I've spent these resources. Once I get this, I would put this in this criteria right here. Now this one will do is let me move up on the language track twice. So I can move any one of these up on the language track 1 time, because it tells you there 1 time. Now some of these will give you ongoing powers, like solar panels. Gives you, every time you spend an hourglass, it will give you 1 oxygen. That's pretty nice if you can buy that one as you're there. Now some of these will give you end of game scoring. This one gives you 4 points at the end of the game. Some give you extra points on your tech. Some of these over here. This one right here, pulse loses a radiation at the start of each turn. So these can do ongoing powers. They could be a one-time use, or they could be end of game scoring. So why is it important to get these? Well, 1, it triggers the end of the game. 2, they can be worth victory points or ongoing powers. So at the end of the game, if you're able to get 3 of the same letter, AAA, that is worth 9 points. If you're able to get 3 different letters, in this case ACD at the top, that is going to be worth less points, 4. And if you don't have anything like ACA, that would not be all the same or all different, that's going to be worth 2 victory points. So those are going to be worth victory points also by how many of those you're able to obtain during the game. You go back to this and you're going to reallocate. So let's say I had used this action. This is the action I took. I bought my cards. Then what I would do is I take the 3 tiles that I had, I would shuffle them up and rearrange them. I would take one of them, put it back on the spot that I was at, and then put the next one over here, and then another one over here. That's going to make this spot not as enjoyable to go. They're not going to get as much stuff, and these will get better. Let me give you another example. Let's say that it was set up like this, and I went here, and that was the action I took. Then on my turn, I would shuffle these up. I'd put one of these back, one here, and then one over here, and the board would be set up a little bit differently for the next player. Once again, you're going to continue to play until either there's 4 of these language tracks are at the end, somebody has all 9 cards, divvy up the most victory points, and that will be the winner. In addition to that, each player is going to get a character to play at the beginning of the game. And this player would normally just give you an ongoing power that you're going to have during the game. I think these could be optional if you didn't want to play with them, but the default way is to play with these. This guy, if you want to spend an hourglass, will give you 2 resources. This guy, if you spend an hourglass, you get to use another wrench. Maybe one of you tech hourglass's abilities a second time this turn. Hourglass, you get rid of irradiations. They just let you do different things, usually by the use of hourglasses. So these are things that you can utilize during the game. Who should buy this game? If you like the Mars theme, you're looking for a light/medium weight game, I think this will definitely hit it. That tile aspect, the way those move, if that interests you, and you like the tech tree kind of thing that's going on here. Very simplistic. I like it quite a bit. This is one I can easily recommend if it looks appealing to you at all. This is one that's a budget title. I definitely think you should take a look at and take a chance on. I think you'll be surprised. For me, it's a keeper.